What's up, Dirtbags, and welcome back to Dirtbag Therapy. I'm your host, Danielle, and today's episode is the first in a two-part series that I'm really excited about. Part 2 will be months from now when the expedition is complete. I'm joined by the Hudson Bay Girls, a badass all-female team preparing for a 1,200-mile canoe expedition along the historic Voyageur Fur Trade route to Hudson Bay. They haven't hit the water yet, but trust me, this conversation is already full of fire. We talk about where this wild idea started, what it's taken to get ready, and how their story challenges who gets to belong in outdoor spaces. It's about grit, sisterhood, advocacy, conservation, and reclaiming the trail, one paddle stroke at a time. And hey, if you're loving these stories and want to keep them going, consider supporting Dirtbag Therapy on Patreon. It's a great way to help bring more diverse outdoor voices to the mic. The link is below in the show notes. Let's get into the episode. Thanks so much for taking the time. I think it's maybe a miracle that we got the four of you pinned down in multiple locations, which is really, really cool. If y'all just want to go around, introduce yourself, your name, where you grew up, and just sort of what got you into paddling, your love of the outdoors, where did that start? And if you want to do pronouns as well, that could be helpful.
I can start. My name's Abby. I use she, her pronouns. I've kind of moved around all over the Midwest. So I kind of like to say I'm just from the Midwest. And I really got into paddling after I went to Northern Lakes Canoe Base, which is a Girl Scout camp out in Ely. So my Girl Scout troop took a trip up there, and it was 5 days. It was with the coolest guides ever. It was my first time really seeing super strong women and women in leadership. And it really just had such a dramatic change in my life after that. So I went back, guided for them, give back to the Girl Scouts a little bit, and here we are.
Nice, thanks.
I'm Emma Brackett. I use they, them, she sometimes, pronouns. And I grew up in the outdoors. My dad's super into just being outside and camping, canoeing, ice climbing, rock climbing, all the things. And I grew up around that and have always been an outdoors person, so.
Nice. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, my name's Melina. I use she, her pronouns, and I call two main places home. I've lived in many different places in Ohio, but I moved to Houston, Texas, like halfway through my life. So I'm both from the Midwest and also from the South. But yeah, I've always just throughout my life wanted to pursue being in the outdoors to whatever extent that means, just playing outside and just doing tons of different activities from running to climbing, backpacking. And I really got into paddling through my university outdoor pursuits program. I was just really invested in leading trips, and we do a summer program for freshmen called New Adventures, and I came onto that as a leader, and one of the trips is like this almost 2-week trip in the Boundary Waters, and that's kind of threw me into the Boundary Waters region and canoeing, and I just fell in love with it.
Nice. I wore my Boundary Waters shirt for y'all.
Yeah,
One of many. I have so many. So like Paragas, I really keep them in business,
Yep,
But
fair.
yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah, going into Paragus after guiding a trip was always so dangerous.
No.
But yeah, so my name is Olivia. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, but I go to school at Virginia Tech up in Blacksburg, Virginia. And yeah, when I was 14 years old, I did a 7-day Boundary Waters and Quetico canoe trip with the Girl Scouts Northern Lakes Canoe Base up in Ely, Minnesota. And that was really just so transformative. Like, I had never been super outdoorsy before then, but just like getting to have that super like rugged and real wilderness experience with like a group of girls with women leading us. Getting to be 14 years old, just out of middle school, portaging the 75-pound Alumacraft canoes was just such a great moment. Yeah, I fell in love with it. So I went back, and when I was a teenager, I was able to do a guide and training program with them, which is like a month-long program in the summer. You kind of like apprentice and learn how to guide and learn like a little bit more of like the hard skills that go into preparing for a trip and then also leading a trip. And yeah, I guided for them back in 2023, and I met Abby. We actually led 2 trips together in the Quetico, so we guided for 17 days, became pretty good friends from that. And yeah, then I went over to Northern Tier last summer with Abby, and that's when we met Emma.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if you could tell, all of us, we come from very different parts of the country, but we all just kind of like fell in love with the Boundary Waters. We're inspired by, seeing lots of strong women there, kind of paving their own ways and paving their own paths, and that's kind of like the main thing that really connected all of us at the core.
Yeah, that was going to be sort of one of my. I have set questions for you all. I do like to riff and go on tangents. That's very, very welcome. That's like what makes something interesting, like a podcast like this, where you're just listening to people have a conversation. Eventually, I'm sure there's going to be stories where we talk about poop and like a bunch of different things, because somehow poop always comes up.
Oh God, I love having my poop conversations with my kids, teaching them that.
Same.
So good.
Listen. You know what? Poop is going to come up again, and I'll tell you the story that we used to tell kids, because I used to guide in the Boundary Waters for 3 years with adjudicated youth, kids that were in lockup, so to speak. They were in the system in the Minnesota Department of Corrections, and they were court ordered by a judge to do a 21-day wilderness therapy program. So part of our programming was in the Boundary Waters in the summers. If we could get, the group size small enough, because we could go up to a certain amount of kids, and then we can't have that many kids and people on a permit to get into the B-Dub. But yeah, we've got some really funny in particular way of sort of training the kids to go on the expedition part of the course, where we would sort of punk them with this story. We called it the one finger wipe, and I'll just leave that as a cliffhanger for when we talk about poop again. If it doesn't make the podcast, I got to do it on like the intro part of the podcast. So, so that was going to be one of my first questions, is like, how the heck did you all get connected? Olivia, you sort of went into it with Abby, and then how you met Emma. But Helena, how do you come into this story, this foursome?
Yeah. Honestly, I hear a lot from those three, like on their original inspiration is kind of from a book called Hudson Bay Bound that Olivia read, and she was originally inspired and kind of worked together with Abby, and they kind of came up with this crazy plan, and they were like, we're gonna paddle to the Hudson Bay and we're gonna do what it takes to get there, whatever it takes. They met Emma and joined Emma in on their crazy idea, and eventually they were looking for a fourth person to paddle with them so they could take 2 canoes. And after searching for a little while and working on it, Olivia mentioned this trip to her boss, who is actually friends with my boss at both of our outdoor programs. And I was like in a really transitionatory period where I was not really knowing what I wanted to do in the future, but I didn't want to just go to grad school and take that traditional path. I wanted to kind of take some time to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And I originally did not see myself joining their trip. When I heard about the trip, I had just wanted to meet with them because I wanted to meet some other powerful women who paddled, and as soon as we started talking, I was like, I'm in trouble because I am in love with them already. And I thought about that trip and their inspiration and everything for probably about a month before I was like, I talked to my parents and I'm like, I think about this trip every single day. I think I need to talk with the crew and join the expedition. So that's kind of where I came into this, and that's when we kind of fully formed and went into high gear. But yeah, Olivia and Abby can talk a little bit more about the origin story too. If they want.
Yeah, what made you all say yes to this massive historic journey? Where did the dream begin?
Yeah, so me and Olivia have kind of it's been brewing for a while since we've been guiding together. And originally I was like, no, this is insane. There's no way I can take an entire summer off to go live in the woods. Like,
I'm like,
that's
yes,
crazy.
there is. And can I just,
Yeah.
I'm going to interject for 1 second. I'm looking at you all. I so dirtbagged around in my 20s. I like see a piece of myself in each one of you. I'm like momming all of you right now. I'm only 37. I'm not that, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you all. But I just want to say it's incredible that you all have the courage to do something like this insane, seemingly insane, but insanely cool. And you're going to be talking about this badass expedition for the rest of your lives. And there's no better way than to just go do stuff like this. Your 20s are meant for this. Like, I hope that you do more of these things, but I just want to tell you, like, I don't know any of you, but I'm proud of you. And I'm super excited to get into this conversation. Anyway, Abby, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So
origin story.
That does mean a lot for us, though, truly. But yeah, so it's kind of been like bumping around me and Olivia's brains. Olivia got me to read this book, Hudson Bay Bound, where Natalie Warren and Anne Breho paddled from Minneapolis to Hudson Bay. They followed a historic route from a book called Canoeing with the Cree. We're following the Voyageurs route, where their fur trading route, from kind of Lake Superior, and then where their other kind of trading post was. But so I was one of the medical staff last summer at Northern Tier, and me and Olivia were in the medical room, and we were on Gaia, and we were mapping it out. We were like, okay, like we could take this lake, and then then we could go on this river. We were mapping it out, and all of a sudden Emma walks in and goes, "What you doing?" And was like, "That looks really awesome. Like, can I join you? That looks so cool." And then Olivia had to go home for some personal reasons, but I was like talking to her, and then I went on trail and they were talking together. And we were like, yeah, like this is gonna happen. We can do this. This is something that's in our future.
Yeah, I had been hearing about this trip, but from other people the entire summer, because Olivia and Abby would sit in the med office and plan this. So I had so many people coming up and going, "Did you hear about the trip these people are doing?" And I was like, that sounds so cool. And I mostly just wanted to like chat with them and see what they were doing, because like that's really cool. And they're like, yeah. Abby was like very quietly like, yeah, we're looking for other people. And I was like, really? That's interesting.
You're like, that's funny because I've just been sitting over here quietly scheming to make my entry, and here it is.
No, that's exactly how it happened. And then we went through a couple of different fourth partners until we landed on Helena, and it was like a match made in heaven. We all were together in the same place for the first time in March for Canoecopia, which is like a paddle sports expo, and it was like everything just clicked into place. We're like, these are my best friends.
Yeah, for sure. And originally, like, we didn't have the idea to make it an all-female crew. Like, when I came to Tier, and then once Abby decided she was in, I was like, okay, like, we were like, okay, let's see who we can get. And then, like, we heard Emma was interested, and we were like, wait a minute, like, we could make this really amazing. And then from the point on when Emma joined us, we kind of knew that we were looking for a female paddler, and that's part of what took us so long to find that fourth crew member was, like, the paddling community is already so small, and the people that do expedition canoeing is even smaller, and then looking for female paddlers who want to do this expedition, that was definitely a search. But yeah, it was well worth it for sure. Yeah, I just remember too, like, talking to Emma early on about like their interest in our expedition. It was kind of like a strange job interview, but we were both trying to be professional and not too excited to like we were definitely like squealing and giggling and like overly excited for this, but also trying to like be like, okay, tell me about your paddling experience and everything. But yeah.
You're like, we have standards and you meet them, but also this is a needle in a haystack now for our fourth person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We did
funny.
have a running joke when we were finding our fourth person that we needed to find another short person. And we actually didn't know how tall Helena was until right before, like, March. And we're all just about the same height. So,
We're like,
Yeah.
Yep, we're all like 5'3".
yeah, I'm like, I am a grand, like, 5'2.5", 5'3".
Yeah,
And
you're
I
like
think
our
I'm the tallest
person.
out of us. Yeah.
Yeah, you and Abby are definitely tied there.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so worried because I was like, these people look really tall online. Like, I'm gonna ruin the whole portaging situation. But yeah, I was like, guys, I have to admit something to you. I'm only 5'2", and then everybody just started screaming because it just worked out so perfectly.
They're like, you fit perfectly in the criteria because the rest of us are the same height, so no worries, boo.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I don't think we realized until we were sizing for paddles, because we were texting our paddle sizes in, and I saw like 50-inch, 52-inch, 48 bench shaft, and I'm like, wait a minute.
We're all around the same height then, just
Yeah.
depending on preference of the paddle length, right?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
also, I just want to follow up with something that you said earlier too. Like you said, what made you say yes to this trip? And I think really that it's important to mention that this trip is more than just a trip to all of us too as well. What really made me say yes is that, you know, not only are these amazing, wonderful, badass women that are trying to like advocate for a more inclusive and diverse community in paddle sports, but also we're advocating for the Boundary Waters region in, you know, trying to educate people and urge people to also advocate for a permanent mining ban in the Boundary Waters region. So there is like not only that area of personal growth where we can like go on this trip and grow together as friends and build our community, but also, you know, it expands beyond than us, more than just us, you know, and we get to become advocates and spread our message to more people.
Absolutely. I think that's the best kind of anything you do in life, the purpose behind it. And there's so many people that the Boundary Waters is such a special place. And to me personally as well, I don't know how I saw y'all. I think one of my best friends lives back in St. Paul, and she also is a lover of the Boundary Waters, and I think somehow found y'all. I'm sure the algorithm or somebody she knows, you know, it's a small community. And people know each other, and she probably
absolutely.
heard about y'all from somebody and then started following you, and then I probably saw you guys because she started following you, and then I was like, I need to get them on the podcast because I want to learn more about them. I want VIP access to these folks, you know. So I was like,
Perfect.
Let's go. Yeah, perfect. 1,200. It's 1,200 miles, right?
Yes.
The journey's
Yep.
about 1,200 miles. That's no joke. What kind of mental and physical training have you been doing to prep, if any? Just going out and paddling like crazy every day just to get like jacked up?
Yeah. So I live in Wisconsin, so our lake just unfrozen.
Yeah, ice out.
Yep, there's still a little bit of ice in there. So I there's not much paddling I can do. But I think something that goes for all of us. We each have like our things that we do. So for me, I'm also like a competitive gymnast, and I do springboard diving, platform diving, stuff like that. And I also like lift. A little bit of a gym bro, but I think we each do our things to keep us active, and they each have components that relate to paddling and portaging. So
I just imagine like standing at the university pool on the side just with your paddle. And
Oh
just
my God.
just stroking, and then you're like, switch! Just
That's not a bad
being
idea.
being
Oh
like a
my
weirdo.
gosh.
It might, I mean, hey, or like get a floaty and just like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just like sitting with your knees
So my
on a
boss
floaty
about this,
somehow.
and he goes, "Do you
Yeah.
have a bathtub? Like, go sit in your bathtub and paddle." I was like, "Oh, you know what? It works."
Hey, nice. Getting creative. Anybody else have creative stories of, or like mentally too, because you're going to be out. What's your predicted? I mean, I think
About
85
85 days.
about 85 days. Yeah. I'm like, I read somewhere, sorry, I saw on your socials somewhere, about 85 days. So mentally, have any of you been out in the wilderness for, I don't know. Have you been out in the wilderness for 85 days before or longer?
Not
in one
85
stretch?
yet, but I graduated high school semester early, so that spring I did like a 55-day outward bound course out in Utah, and yeah, it was a fun 8 weeks. It was a really cold 8 weeks though. I got nerve damage in my toes from being cold all the time. It did come back after 3 months at home.
Good.
But yeah, that was my longest amount of time in the outdoors, and that trip was really cool because like 1 week we'd be backpacking, then we go canoeing, whitewater rafting, canyoneering, back to backpacking. So it really was just a lot of like learning different skills and getting to see like different areas of Utah. Yeah.
Nice. I like all the switch up and different activities. That's keep you engaged, and the 55 days probably just flew by.
We can pretend they did. Yeah, I was.
You're like they did. My toes didn't think so.
Yeah, that was probably the first time I'd ever had type 2 fun in the woods before, because prior to that, most of my like long outdoor experiences had been in the Boundary Waters, and I was just so used to just like loving every moment, loving the hard portages. And then I got out to the desert where we had like 60 to 70 pound packs, had to carry 10 liters of water plus our 2 Nalgene, so 12 liters of water, heavy food, heavy equipment, and like it rained the entire first week we were there. It got down in the teens. I found out my mom had ruined my rain jacket when she washed it with the normal clothes. So I got really, really wet and really, really cold. And it just kind of didn't warm up until maybe the last week.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it's definitely a trudge.
That's Outward Bound's middle name.
Yeah.
It's type 2 fun.
Absolutely. Like 2 days before we went whitewater rafting.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a lead instructor with Outward Bound for many years, so
Very cool.
I would lead that type 2 fun and just pretend that everything was okay.
Yeah. Was that at Bob's?
It was at Bob's. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I was actually considering both Bob's and NCOB's before I had committed to this trip. I was like in the process of getting those positions, and I was close, but I was like, the Hudson Bay Girls mean a bit more right now.
And they'll be there when you get back, you know.
Yeah.
And that's some real cred for you. A trip like this, for sure.
Absolutely. But yeah, going back to your previous question, for myself, I'm like an ultra runner, so I tend to do like a lot of running and trail running. Not so much these past few months, but I'm easing back into it now finally. And yeah, on top of that, I lead trips with my school and right by the new river, so I do occasionally get out on the water. But I don't know, sometimes I'll have days where I'm like, oh, I didn't go to the gym. Okay, 5 push-ups in my room right now before I go to bed. And that's kind of what I do. But yeah, I think a lot of the mental preparation is just like maintaining your strength levels and, you know, stretching, preparing yourself for injury, and kind of like all of those things. And yeah, the part I'm most focused on for this trip is also just like the mental preparation of, you know, being in a group for that long and being outside for that long. And yeah, we have a group contract, and part of that contract is every day we'll have our turtle time. So we'll get to camp, set up camp, and then, you know, take 10, 30 minutes, maybe like an hour or two if we get to camp early, just to kind of be off on our own, like have our own space and our own time. And that's something I actually got for my Outward Bound trip, and that's something that Abby actually did when we started guiding too. And yeah, it's just really great because like we all love each other and we're all friends, but we do need some quiet time away from each other so we can keep loving each other and keep being friends during this trip.
Everyone needs
Smart.
a little bit of a reset every day. And you know, with it's like a group understanding, not necessarily like you have to go sit in your tent for 2 hours and be silent. Like it's more of just like we gotta like take some personal care time, make sure we're all in a good spot before we get on with our day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar situation as Olivia, similar region, but I do a lot of running as well. I like to run long distances, and I do a lot of rock climbing through my outdoor program. I also work at the rock climbing wall, and when it was in the winter months, I recently just took on ice climbing, which takes a whole new level of strength and just things like that. So I do a variety of things here and there, but I definitely, for my mental strength, I definitely plan to do a lot of journaling on the trip and just personal reflection. I feel like I like the interpersonal side of trips a lot, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be hitting those rosebud thorns.
Yeah. I've been able to paddle recently. I did a small section where I was teaching like high schoolers how to run some whitewater in Maine, because there's a lovely little race at the beginning of April. It's a little bit ice out. It was snowing when we were paddling. You gotta wear your wetsuit.
It's just don't fall in
but it
weather.
was, yeah, I ended up to the thighs in the water, but that's because we very nicely hit a rock. So that happens. But I've been able to do that a little bit just to like get my toes in because it's cold here. And also I'm from Maine, but then I also am going to school in Worcester, Massachusetts, which Massachusetts has a lot of water. A lot of it's reservoirs, which you aren't allowed to paddle on. And they will yell at you if you swim in them or paddle on them because it's the drinking water.
Yeah.
How did you
That's-
find that one out?
I know.
That's like upstate New York too.
There's a
That's
lot
like,
of signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an East thing.
It is. Yeah, but I am doing a lot of swimming laps at our pool and weights, and then I used to row for the crew team, so I'm now doing a lot of erging. So, yeah.
Nice. Y'all are ready. It's like Orange Theory fitness up in here.
For real.
So,
Yeah.
I actually I bought clamp-on yoke pads to port into my school's river canoes. And I do that occasionally, but the thing with Blacksburg is that it's like constantly windy. Like today I was gonna go after work and we had 30-mile-an-hour gusts and I did not feel like wrestling the canoe on the greenway. I've done it in
Little bit of a
25-mile-an-hour gusts, but that was a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
At least we'll
Yikes.
normally have our little tree guards, little wind
For sure.
guards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're retracing the Voyageur Fur Trade route. It's got deep historical significance. How does that legacy inform your mindset or connection to the land as you paddle?
Yeah. So something really amazing about just this whole region we're in is there's so much history. And yeah, a big part of our expedition too is like we want to advocate for current issues, but we also like want to raise awareness about this history. So yeah, we've all taken our time to research like the areas we're going through. I got to do a lot of the work on our website route sections post, so that really like allowed me to further like inform myself, especially about the Native American history there too, and like the indigenous people's history. Because I feel like that can kind of sometimes get overshadowed by the French voyageurs, but it really is fascinating to learn about. But yeah, I just feel like the area we're going through, like what used to be a glacier, then it became like one of the largest lakes in the world. Then that thawed out, and then that left some like pretty remarkable water as well. Yeah, I just think it's amazing that we'll get to travel so far through so much history and also just get to see so much as the land changes. From talking with Natalie Warren, it sounds like when we're on the Hayes River in just like a matter of like days to a week, we're going to see it go from like boreal forest and then all the way to tundra right as we approach the bay. So I just think seeing the transition will be so remarkable.
Yeah, kind of going off that, there are so many layers of history. And one thing that we continually try to do is research where we're going and what peoples live there. So kind of reaching out to those like tribes and organizations and making sure we're treating their land with respect is really big. And we're going to be following Leave No Trace principles pretty tightly, which kind of gives that respect back to the land, making sure we're treating it well for generations to come.
Yeah, and yeah, I think like it's really awesome for us to be like canoeing this because of its like historical connection to the area and things like that. And even the place that we're starting at, Grand Portage, that has a lot of indigenous roots, and a lot of people have really encouraged us to reach out to the tribes in that area and kind of talk with them and have them inform us of, you know, the history there and what they're doing and what we can do to respect the land and things like that. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful thing, you know. Just the Boundary Waters specifically just has so much history that not a lot of people know about, which is really cool that we get to tell people about it. You know, every time we tell someone about this trip, we get to tell them about its significance in our lives, but it's also significant historically and things like that.
Yeah.
Nice. Y'all have done your research, which I'm not surprised by. Have y'all taken a trip together ever?
Not all of us.
Other than to Wisconsin,
Pieces
to
of
go
you?
to Canoecopia.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
You did
So
take
we've done a little bit
together.
here and there. Me, Olivia, and Emma all lived at camp together, so we were all like in the same areas, eating together, all of that. But so
Yeah.
our first extended trip together.
Okay.
I think
Surprise!
For sure. Yeah, I think in
85
terms
days.
of time in the woods, I think Abby and I are the only ones that have spent like time in the wilderness together. But yeah, that's part of like why we were kind of so picky about who we let join our team, because I mean, I think we wanted everyone to kind of just like have the same like respect for each other and also come from like different perspectives, but also just kind of have that like similar skill level and similar foundation. So that's really essential.
Kind of another thing is we're all former Girl Scouts, which I think all of the stuff that we do in the woods kind of all blossomed from the same teachings. So kind of going forward with that, it's a little bit easier that we all kind of have the same like upbringing, I guess, kind of same guiding
Yeah.
morals.
Yeah, foundational piece.
Yeah, we've all also been trip leaders to young participants as well. So I think we all have a really good understanding of risk management as well, and just kind of doing things not the right way, but you know, the safest way, best practices, continually double checking each other, giving each other feedback, and we all come with that mindset, like accepting things like that. We've talked a lot about, you know, having like expedition mindsets as well of, you know, the things that the level of risk that you would accept on a weekend trip is not the same level of risk that you would accept on a month-long trip versus like an 85-day-long trip. So we're always going to do things that don't put each other in risky situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about Girl Scouts. What about the Girl Scouts sort of sparked your love for the outdoors? And you all have mentioned sort of a similar theme and seeing strong, badass women. And how did some of those experiences shape who you are today? Which, big surprise, clearly it shaped you in a way to want to do something super epic.
Yeah, I feel like I have a really strong connection with Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout for 15 years. I still am one, have a lifetime member. But I moved to 5 or 6 different states when I was a kid. But the one thing that was always constant was Girl Scouts. I always had a troop and a leader, and I always had my group of friends. And they were all always accepting and creative and wonderful humans. And a big part of Girl Scouts is getting outside and leading and giving back. So my Girl Scout troops, we would always go camping, and we would always go outside on hikes, and just do a bunch of different things. And then our big kind of trip was, again, going to the Boundary Waters, which was really just so like transformational for me, and kind of like changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Yeah. The Girl Scouts, honestly, I feel like really from a young age, like instilled a deep sense of like kindness and empathy, respect for others, in me that has just followed me throughout my life. I mean, they teach us like I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, you know, and just like kind of have this community of women, working together, doing good in the world. And I just like have so many good memories of my mom was my older sister's troop leader, and just kind of looking up to those older girls, wanting to be like them, watching them do service projects. And I even got to go on camping trips with them, which was super cool. And yeah, just kind of valuing community. Yeah.
I know for myself, the probably the most important moment for me was just getting to that canoe trip with the Northern Lakes Canoe Base, and then later on, like getting to keep going back there and having those like female guides that really just like kept mentoring me and kept teaching me. Because I think like I'd never really wanted to be outdoorsy or learn much about the outdoors until that moment. So then like immediately having a community of like women and girls that could teach me and like learn with me was just so pivotal. Like I genuinely I wouldn't even be close to here. Like I don't even, if I hadn't done that trip, I don't even think I would like the outdoors. I don't think I would be a trail runner. Like I don't know who I would be, but I don't think it would be as fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did Girl Scouts all through, I did daisies through cadets, and I'm still, like, I've got my little membership card. But my troop always did, like, we were all very outdoorsy people, and most of us were outdoorsy people, and we would do, like, a mixture of, like, some more indoor stuff, some more outdoor stuff, but it almost was never a no, we can't do that. It was a how can we do that. So there's a jamboree in West Point that we hiked into West Point and went to. Like, there wasn't really a no, you can't do that, that's too much for our troop, which was fantastic. We did a bunch of stuff in Baxter State Park and Acadia National Park and all through our area.
Yeah. Something I also just got reminded of recently is how much we love to sing in the Girl Scouts. Because when we went to Canoeacopia all together, the Girl Scouts from Northern Lakes were super awesome, and they invited us to hang out after a really long day at the conference. And we just got in a circle and we're just singing and playing guitar, and it just brought a lot of joy to me and made me feel very childlike. And I think we all have our songbook stored in our heads for the trip.
Yeah. And I really think too, like, the amazing thing about Girl Scouts is it just like it lets girls grow in just such like a low pressure, low stress environment, to where like in a lot, I feel like there's just like a misconception about girl groups where it's like, oh, like they're in competition with each other, and like there's just, oh, they're all jealous of each other, and like that's not necessarily true. It's like when you have like a healthy community of girls and women, like it's really just the most amazing thing, because there's so much knowledge in that group, and there's just so much like caring, but then there's also just like such a desire to like push forward, to like learn more, and it's truly amazing.
Yeah. I love that you all have, I keep saying foundational base. Yeah, Girl Scouts foundational base. But who knew that? When did you all start? What age were you when you started Girl Scouts?
I did daisies twice, so it was Yep. It was the year before kindergarten started for me.
Okay, so you were like
Same with me.
a wee babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got daisies through cadets, and then once I stopped homeschooling, I couldn't go to meetings with my homeschool troop, so that's kind of when I stopped doing troop activities. But then I found the canoe base, so I just started doing canoe base things.
Yeah, I think, like, as young as you can join Girl Scouts, little baby age, from then I was a Girl Scout.
The baby Hudson babes. Say that 5 times fast. I dare you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 14, 15, 16 years in the making.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here we
Who
go.
would have thought?
Who would have thought? The ultimate Girl Scout group coming up. We've got a little visitor here. Hey, Betty.
Yeah.
What's your
This is
dog's
Teddy.
name?
This is Teddy, and then the loud one that you keep hearing in the background is Luna. She's been to the Boundary Waters several times.
Abby has a dog named Luna.
Yeah, it's...
I'm convinced
Listen.
I can make her a boat dog.
You can.
She does not like water, but I'm convinced.
My Luna is obsessed with water. You get her in a speedboat or a canoe or a paddle board, like, doesn't matter. She's like, I'm on it. Let's go. You put her in a car and she's like, she like hates it. She's all anxious and quiet and like shuts down. And but then of course when we get to the location, then she's like, "Fuck yeah, we're at the Boundary Waters, woohoo!" Yeah,
Oh my God, absolutely.
My dog's a boat dog. She gets her own life vest because she's a pit bull lab mix and sinks because she's so dense.
she's like a brick. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's just, like, the top of her head. She looks like an alligator in the water, because it's just the top of her head,
Yup.
and then, like, the tip of her tail.
Yeah, like that shark noise. But,
Okay, she's just in stealth
Yeah.
mode.
She
Yeah.
will purposefully flip paddleboards, though. But that's just because she'll swim until she's coughing up water. So you pull her out of the water with her PFD. And then she'll flip your paddleboard because you pulled her out of the water and she doesn't want to be out of the water.
Aw, cute. Yeah, my Luna has a PFD too. And a lot of the time, if we're just around a lake or something, she doesn't necessarily need to have one on, but in the Boundary Waters or on a speedboat, always. And she's mostly black too, so when she goes into these, especially like, well, Minnesota lakes, Wisconsin lakes, especially in the Boundary Waters, it's like brown, right? It's dark. You can't always see very well, and so she's got a bright yellow one, and then they have the handle, so on the back, so if you need to pull them out or into the boat or out of the boat or whatever,
We are all big
It's handy.
swimmers of PFD. Little known fact, we also have to drag Olivia out of the water during swim time.
Oh yeah, where are those PFDs? I just listened to, was it Dirtbag Diaries? There was an episode recently, maybe a month ago, it was released, and this guy had been going to the Boundary Waters like his whole life since he was a kid. They were at I can't remember, one of the falls, good
Basswood?
fishing. It wasn't Basswood, it was a different area where he would fish. And these guys are like, again, they were going for like 20-30 years, very experienced. It was just like a horror story. They weren't wearing their PFDs, and they moved right up to the edge. They were really paying attention, but then something happened that distracted them, and one of the boats ended up going over the falls, and none of them had their life jackets on.
Yep.
One of the guys that tipped over the falls somehow, I think, ended up, I don't know, it doesn't, wear your PFDs. There were, I think there ended up being 2 deaths, and his brother actually ended up passing away. Really, like, super tragic. And even I was listening to it, and I'm like, you've been going there for 30 years. You sound like a pro and that you really know what you're doing. And then just that one time that you're like, oh, I don't need it. But I'm like,
That false sense of confidence.
Yeah.
It's like what people don't really expect. When I was first researching like the region, and I was looking up like accident reports with my mom, and she was like, we need to like see, like, make sure you can be as safe as you can be. And she was thinking more about the wildlife, and like maybe getting attacked by a bear or anything. But when you look it up, all you can find are reports of people drowning. That's like the #1 cause of death or injuries because of drowning, because people aren't wearing their PFDs. So
Yeah, pretty much anytime we're touching the water,
Yep.
we're going to be
They're on.
buckled.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, even for
Good,
swimming
good.
too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that because I remember there's this gorgeous lake in the Quetico called Isabella Lake. It's one of my favorites. Abby and I got to go there. Well, like a month after we went there, someone drowned on that lake, and it's like really small, flat water. It's not narrow at all. Maybe take like 5 minutes to swim across.
Got a little
it, I
beaver
guess.
stream in it.
Yeah. I guess just like no PFD. Maybe it got bonked on the head, but yeah, you'll
I mean-
never catch us without the PFDs. And also they're
So
cute.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm also a first responder. I work in an ambulance out of a fire station, and the worst calls are always like, we thought it would be fine. Like, I didn't wear my seatbelt because I've never crashed, or you know, like
I'm just driving down the block. Yeah.
and it's always when you think it's gonna be fine, that's when tragedy strikes.
Right.
So it's really all about prevention, kind of in everything I do, like out in the outdoors and everywhere. It's all preventing the bad things from happening is like the best thing you can do.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you all have thought through a lot of safety protocols and things, which, yeah, if you're spending 85 days out in some rugged wilderness, you better have some things sussed out for sure. Are you all carrying like a spot tracker or what else? Sat phone? What else are you carrying
so
for safety precautions.
Like having our camps that we've worked at have all been, you take a sat phone, and you take a radio. But the thing with the sat phone is you have to be connected to the satellite the entire time you're talking. And if it's cloudy or stormy or whatever, you might only get a couple seconds or a minute of satellite. So instead we're bringing a Garmin Mini, and then a Garmin 67i, which also has like a couple extra things. So we'll be able to do sat texting and like SOS buttons.
Okay, nice. Yeah, those satellite phones can get tricky on days. And I remember like the spot trackers are nice because you can it'll send your immediate like location, and that like a green light, you're good and it's quick. But even with those, you have to, I remember walking around the woods with it because you have to have it like face up, and then you're like, that's a good, yep, let me just set it right there. And just let it do its thing for a minute. Yeah.
And even like I've been on both sides of that sat phone, and sometimes it's like, wait, but like where are you? And then drops, and you're like, well,
Yep.
Yeah,
I can't do anything until they call back.
Yeah, there was a time this summer where I had to call in to base, and I think Abby answered that one, and we were on the sat phone, and we had 20 seconds, and I was like, okay, pupils are pearl, blood pressure is, and then it would just drop. Yeah, we worked it out, though.
Yeah.
It's like that old commercial where the guy's like trying to call collect or something or free. It's it's Bob, we had a baby, it's a boy or something, right?
Yes.
Like you just get only get the like meat and potatoes in. You don't need to deal with the sides, right? You just need to get the basic stuff in, or the immediate things in. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit about what y'all are doing for food. While we're on like logistical things, I don't know how we got on this tangent, but it's very welcome. I've seen a little bit of the food mess and like haul that you all are doing. If there's like some dehydrating things, and talk, whoever wants to go in or and talk a little bit about like what's the food plan.
Yeah, so my parents have actually, they're recently retired and recently an empty nest. So this is their retirement activity, is dehydrating all of our food.
Oh my God, this is so needed too.
Yeah,
Can I just say, someone that's around recently retired folks, and then my folks have been retired for a while, they need something to do. So this is great.
Yes, it's like that. And then like my dad works out and they go to the movies on Tuesday. Like that's their life. But they've been like cooking up a bunch of different meals. So for dinners, we have like a 14-day cycle. And then breakfast, we'll have like 7 different breakfasts, and then kind of like the same lunch every day. But we have a couple resupplies throughout our route. Either we'll ship them ahead, or some lovely people are paddling out or driving out and bringing some assisted resupplies. But we're going to have it all packed up in little baggies before we head out.
Yeah.
Nice.
And my family owns a freeze dryer, so my parents have been freeze drying our chicken and then buying some freeze dried beef.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. See, many hands make light work.
for
It
sure.
takes it honestly takes a village.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Talk to me about just some of the like press or feedback that you've gotten from just like friends or family or whoever about like an all-female / they them trip, some of the microaggressions, or just sort of in your life, like as a female in the outdoors. What are some of the microaggressions or things or doubts or comments or some of the sort of bullshit that you've received? Because I know it's probably happened.
So working with the Girl Scout program, something they would teach all of us during our safety talk the night before going out on trail, it was if someone comes up to you out of Portage and says, "Hey, let me take your pack. I'm a big, strong man." You say, "No, thanks. I've got it. I'm a Girl Scout." One summer, one of the kids said, "No, thanks. I got it. I'm a Girl Scout. I have a knife." And then that kind of became our unofficial motto when they would get pushy.
Oh my God. I'm going to name the episode that, I think. No thanks. I got it. I'm a Girl Scout. I have a knife.
That would be amazing. But yeah, so I think it's just kind of that mentality of like obviously being in the Boundary Waters, especially this past summer guiding for a Scouting America program, which is like still predominantly male, I would say. Like I one of my trips, I was the only female on that trip, and I was also leading that trip. So like we were at this portage, I'm carrying the canoe and my pack, and we're just like going about our way. And I think like people will be like, "Oh, is that girl under that canoe?" Or there was one time when I was 16 and I was double packing and I had like the food pack on, then another pack, and I was just like stumbling my way on the Vera portages. And if you know those ones, those are like incredibly rugged, like I think 200 something rods. Like I love them, but they're so tough.
Up straight down.
Yeah, and I was like double packing. I think I was 16 years old, and I was carrying these like Kool-Aid buckets that had snacks in it, and I dropped the bucket lid, and this guy brought me the bucket lid and was like, "Here you go, you dropped this." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Like I couldn't manage that lid.
There's definitely been a couple times on trail where people would come up and start talking to like the 15-year-old boy next to me as if he's in charge. I'm like, "I've told you this 3 times. I'm the guide. I'm the one in charge. I have all your papers. I swear I know what I'm doing." For the most part, online, it's been very positive. And I think we have a lot of that to owe to Natalie Warren and Ann Rayho and their all-female expedition to the Bay. It's within the canoeing community. It's been very positive on trail. I think that people have some good intentions. But there are definitely some unconscious biases that people still have about women in the outdoors. We've definitely gotten, our fair share of Instagram comments saying like, "You won't make it, just turn back now." But I think you just have to brush that off, take it as it is.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of that idea that because we're an all-female trip, we're not going to be doing as much as like an all-male trip doing the same thing. It's like they see like one of the first all-female and they probably just assume that we're doing something that, hundreds of men have like paddled before or whatever, but really that's not the case. Like I think from our research, I think we're going to be some of like the first 24 like documented people to ever like
If
do
that.
this route, if even. So, like, it definitely, just because we're women doesn't mean that our expedition is any less valid than a male expedition. And also, just because we're not the very first people to paddle this route doesn't mean it means anything less. Like, we're doing this to advocate to save the Boundary Waters, and we're also doing this to encourage more women to go outside. And I think that just having, like, such a strong passion and being able to, like, use our expedition to really just bring awareness to the things that we love and to the things that matter to us has really made this just so powerful for us. But yeah, we are really grateful that a lot of people in the canoeing community, like they get it, they see what they're doing, and they're here for it and they love it. And we're definitely very, very grateful for that. And the few people that look at our trip and say like, "Oh, well, they're all girls." I'm like, well, I don't think you live a happy life anyway, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, who are these trolls? Also, like, they've probably they've probably never canoed in their life. Like, they don't know what they're freaking talking about. There's some
Sometimes
isolated,
I'll open up their
sad
profiles
man.
and I'm like,
Yeah, Yeah, there
Yeah,
was
they
something
call
the other
they call
day
the paddle
yeah.
the oar and a canoe a kayak, and I'm like, that's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
And I'm
we
not
get
going to
those,
waste my breath on your sad sack. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
when we get those comments,
No, I've
Olivia
had
was like,
go
I
go
was just
ahead.
saying about the comments, like Olivia was like, oh, like let's just block these guys, like like they don't know what they're talking about. But then Abby was like, no, don't block them. Let them see what we do, and like just let's prove it to them that like, or more just proving it for ourselves. Like we don't care what you have to say. If you're gonna be negative. But yeah, I think something that like keeps me going personally through this is that the people who do support us and what it means to them. When we went to Canoeacopia, it was like a really testament to like how tight the canoeing community was, and anytime we told people about this trip and what we were doing, they were just super supportive. And I just remember there was this one couple that we talked to them the first day, and we stopped by their booth again, and the woman stopped me and she's like, we have just 3 young daughters at home, and I just can't stop thinking about your trip and how inspiring it is, and just like having representation of people like y'all is just so important for the community, because the majority of people walking around there at the convention are older white men, and that's just the reality of it. Other than the Girl Scouts, the Northern Lakes Canoe Base, we were a few of the younger women, at the convention. So, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's inspiring that people are taking notice and are supporting us, and that we are making a difference in the culture of the paddling community.
Yeah, and we're not doing it for the men. We're not doing it for the old men. They've had their whole life. We're doing it for the young girls so they can see strong women and they can say, I want to be like them. I want to go on a canoe trip.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember, like, when I read Hudson Bay Bound a few months before my first guiding season, like, I'd always wanted to paddle farther, but I think that was the first time I'd ever heard about a canoe expedition, and that's the first time I'd ever heard about an expedition to Hudson Bay. And that was just really the spark for me, where I realized, like, wait, I can do this. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that, like, Natalie and Anne, like, had the courage, like, over 10 years ago now, to be like the first female crew to go Minneapolis to Hudson Bay and to write that amazing book, and to just kind of change the attitude around it. Because from reading like their interactions, even in trying to get like sponsorships and even to like meeting people on trail, like things definitely have a lot more change to go, but it's just already been, I think, a much more positive interaction overall for all of us, and we really owe it to them.
Yeah, I did a lot of I was working with, when I was working with the Scouts this past summer, I was doing trail maintenance and showing kids how to like break rocks properly and make crush and build out the trails so that they work, and so that they aren't mud and clay pits that you have to walk, like that people walk around, like trying to keep the trails where the trails are. And it's really interesting to see people come down the trail and then either like thank one of like the kids or like, to be fair, I'm not much older than the groups that I was taking out. I was taking out 16 through 20-year-olds.
But you did have a Forest Service hat and
I did have a different
so.
color hard hat and uniform, which
It
the
was quite
children
obvious.
did not have. Yeah. But like, it was really interesting to see them like find, like when my co-guide was, or the foreman who was with me as well, the OA foreman, he would go out in the woods to find rocks, and I'd be like showing the kids how to like put the rocks down in the ground, and people would walk by and go, "Ah, yes, what are you doing?" And I'm like, that is the 16-year-old boy not in charge. but okay.
He has no clue
Sure.
what he's doing. He's just
Yeah.
for the ride.
It's always like the funniest. I feel like people would just gravitate towards like the oldest, tallest looking Eagle Scout, maybe not even an Eagle Scout yet in every crew, and they'd paddle up to them and be like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "That kid doesn't have a map. That kid's in the bow. Like, look at who's."
He doesn't even have a driver's license.
Yeah, let's be real. And I don't know, it was just kind of, and then even sometimes, like, I know it'd take, like, some groups, like, it would take them a while to realize, like, oh, wait, maybe it's, like, the girl in the back of the canoe with all the maps and with the gear and with the med kit and everything that's actually in charge. Yeah, and I think, like, even in Girl Scouts, too, like, they would, because Girl Scouts, the Northern Lakes Canoe Base, when I was there, they used mostly Alumacraft canoes. I think they're switching over now to be more Kevlar-based, but they still bring out at least one Alumacraft on every trip. And like there would just be guys that would see us carrying our 75-pound canoes like badasses down these trails, like having these like 14-year-old girls like hyping each other up, like going about their way. And they'd be like, "Oh, you guys are learning the hard way. That's so cool." And I'm just like, what makes you think they're learning? Like they're on day 9 of a 10-day trip. Like they've got this. Like why did you do the easy way out? Why do you have an ultralight canoe? You know, like why don't you have a Grumman then?
Yeah. I need to diminish you to make my small self feel better.
Yeah.
Alumacrafts are no joke. Those are, fun fact, those are produced in my hometown, St. Peter, Minnesota.
Oh, really? Very cool.
I had an Alumacraft. Yeah, I had an Alumacraft. That was my boat, just banging around. I grew up on a lake. Classic Minnesota kid. Yeah, I just grew up banging that thing around. It's like a German tank, you know? It's just indestructible.
Those are actually
I grew up with Old Towns.
Yeah, and Old Towns are great too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I grew up with Old Towns, and we would take the... They can bend.
They gotta
take a little, like a heat gun. You pop the side
pop it right
back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to purchase a nice Alumacraft because, like, I don't know, I learned on them. I love portaging them. I love paddling them. I know they're heavy and I know they're impractical, and I heard that they don't really make them anymore, but they're still my favorite. So,
Yeah, I don't know if they've phased them out or that shut down or what. I haven't been back to my hometown in a while, but fond memories. I sold that boat a while ago, and then I bought a solo Kevlar like dream and had that for a while and then sold it. And yeah, anyway, what boats are you taking up?
Yeah, we're bringing 2 North Star B-17s in the IXP layout with aluminum gunnels. So they're about like 65 pounds, and they're made out of this composite material that's part Kevlar, but also part Anegra, I believe. So it's supposed to be like more durable than Royal X and have really impressive shock absorption. So yeah, it seems like a good mix between like being light enough to be like easy to portage, but then also having the durability we want for the Hayes River, so we don't have to be like stressing every single time we might like bump against a little rock or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my thought. You're going to have some girth to the boats because you're not going to want to like have to mess with fixing them, patching them, getting a new one hauled in, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Just like those issues that could arise that aren't worth it. And y'all are badass anyway, so you can handle yourselves with a heavy boat. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know there have been crews that have paddled like the Hayes and Kevlars more recently, but Abby and I also wanted to purchase canoes to have after the trip. So I think that when we were doing the research, we kind of realized that like the B-17 would be like a really good in-between, and it would just get us to feel like confident on really like all of the water that we paddle.
And it'll come out the other side.
So true.
Yes.
I was going to say, it's also something we can bring in future trips.
So unfortunately, I do have to head off. But thank you so much. And you guys continue without me. But this was really great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Abby. Appreciate your time.
Bye, Abby.
Of course. Bye.
So you all have touched on this, and this sort of segues into the last, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe less. I don't know. We'll see. Everyone's good on time?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So the trip isn't just about adventure, like you all have said. It's also about advocacy. That's a big piece of this. What do you want people to understand about the threat of mining in the Boundary Waters? Because that's one of the big pieces to your expedition.
Yeah. So the type of mining proposed for like the Boundary Waters area is in the Superior National Forest. I believe Twin Metals has 2 leases that may or may not be like under examination right now to I think renew. But yeah, they want to mine on Birch Lake and then the South Quishby River in the Superior National Forest. And something to understand about that region is like the national forest surrounds the boundary waters, but because it's like lakes and rivers and everything, like all the water sources there are pretty much all interconnected. So like even though the mining is happening just miles outside of the wilderness area, it's certainly going to impact the wilderness area. And yeah, sulfide or copper mining, that's the type of mining they want to do. It's never been done in the state of Minnesota before. It's like one of the most toxic types of mining you can do. The byproduct, like when it's exposed to air and water, it leaches sulfuric acid out. So yeah, you're going to have the groundwater poisoned, the surface water poisoned. And because of the topography of that region, it's only going to spread. And I believe like the Quetico Superior ecosystem is over 4 million acres. And I think it's estimated to impact all of that. So like all the boundary waters into the Quetico over into Voyageurs National Park, like you're just going to destroy the water quality. You're going to destroy the ecosystem. There's like billions and millions of dollars of revenue generated every single year from the ecotourism economy in that area as well. So like it really would just destroy a sustainable outdoor economy and America's most visited wilderness. Like the Boundary Waters gets 250,000 visitors every single summer. Like, and it's so important to so many people. There's so many youth organizations there. And if we want to like help our youth out, you know, because I feel like there's such a mental health crisis happening since COVID, especially with like our generation and even with generations younger than us. And I feel like people are always like, well, back in my day, kids used to go outside. We didn't have these cell phones. And I'm like, you can't expect to send your kids outside if you're going to mine and deforest and destroy all the areas where these programs are. So I really think it's just so essential for us to protect because like we need the Northern Lakes Canoe Base to still be able to do trips. Like we need Scouting America programs around. We need to protect the YMCA programs and everything else. So yeah, it's just we need to get that permanent mining ban for the Rainy River watershed in order to protect that economy and then protect our youth and our future.
Yeah.
Well said. I think I can tell you've said that a few times, Olivia. You've got it down. You've got it down.
Yes, I do a lot of outreach at my school, and I also do a lot of presentations. So I'm always looking at their website and trying to update myself on everything.
Very nice.
Yeah, even
well
more
polished.
Thank you. Even more recently, like there is an executive order that kind of reframed the purpose of public lands to be for resource extraction, and that happened about a month ago. So what that does is it kind of it streamlines the process to get these companies like their mining leases, their logging leases, and it makes it easier to do this resource extraction. And currently there is a Boundary Waters Protection Act up. I forget exactly who it was proposed by, but that is a current piece of legislation that is very relevant to this issue.
Yeah, Tina Smith, senator from Minnesota, just proposed legislation, permanent legislation. I think it was the first time a senator has done that.
Yeah.
There's been legislations and lots of protections around it and pauses and things with the Biden administration, but this is the first piece of legislation, to my knowledge, that's so permanent that a senator is actually brought to Congress to really make it permanent to protect. So big deal. That was about a week ago, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. Yeah, and I feel like I see people argue sometimes. They're just like, well, the Boundary Waters was logged before it became a wilderness area in the 60s. Like there used to be resorts there. It's not exactly like untouched. But I mean, those resorts and that logging, although it did protrude into the wilderness, there's still so much of it that is just completely pristine. And like, thankfully, that region's been able to recover. Like, you can't really tell. And I just feel like the argument.
You can. I've been in those areas on Knife Lake where Dorothy Moulter, and where she first started, there was like cabins and a resort and stuff. Like you can't tell at all.
You can't. Yeah.
That's something that I was also going to mention, that people who don't know about these issues, I think don't realize how much work has been put into the Boundary Waters to create such a pristine wilderness area that is it's kind of a rare place in the world now of like having such a just pristine wilderness area because of the work of people like Sigurd Oakland, putting these protections in place and, taking the development out of the area and kind of restoring that and letting the forest regenerate and heal. And to an outsider, it might seem like, oh, we're just, having another mining area, just creating more economic opportunities and development for the United States. But actually, when you talk to people in the communities who care about the boundary waters, you realize that's not really what these communities want. They want to protect the boundary waters. They want to, see this staple in their community preserved. So it feels like a lot of the mining and the development that is being pushed on the region is coming from more of like a top-down area rather than listening to the people from the bottom up. So it's very extractive and exploitative. And yeah, we just really want to encourage people to research the consequences on their own of mining, and kind of like what that means for the historical implications of the wilderness area.
What, for listeners that want to help protect the boundary waters, hopefully this isn't the first time they've heard about the boundary waters if they're listening, but maybe, and that's okay, because we want you to join the fight. What are a few things that people can do to take action and to get involved? What do you suggest?
Going to Save the Boundary Waters, which is a lovely organization that we're working with a little bit. Their website has a bunch of resources and information on the boundary waters, as well as ways to do volunteering and like call to actions and all that sort of stuff. And another good one for education and a mining restriction, but not a full ban, is Friends of the Boundary Waters. But I'm not as familiar with their mission statement, so I'm not gonna like go through that. But they do a lot of education through in the areas around the boundary waters. So.
And I would say even more immediately too, if you go to Save the Boundary Waters, under their Take Action part on their website, they have a whole thing where you can find your representatives and contact your representatives for more recent legislation. So I would say like supporting the Boundary Waters like protection bill that's out on the floor right now, and really just staying informed too, because this is very much an evolving issue. And like when I first started going to the Boundary Waters, it was during like our current administration's, it was during President Trump's first term. And I know that a lot of these issues kind of reemerged. And now that he is back in office again, I know we've definitely been seeing like a big reemergence, but it's kind of even been more threatening than before, to the point where like some of these recent executive orders and everything even threaten the actual wilderness area itself and not just the national forest. So yeah, just really staying informed, because I feel like this is kind of a more threatening attack on the boundary waters than what I think has been seen in recent years. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. We could probably spend the whole rest of the podcast talking about this, but I'll shift it up a little bit. Thanks for that. Canoeing participation. Let's talk about that. It's declining, especially among women and young women. What do you think needs to change to make paddling more accessible, welcoming, and exciting for girls and women?
Yeah, I think in order to make that change, we really just need to protect our youth organizations, and especially our organizations that lead trips for females. Because really, like the Girl Scouts, the Northern Lakes Canoe Base, I think is one of the Girl Scouts' only wilderness programs. And I love it, but I really think it deserves like more attention. Like I'd love to see that program grow. I'd love to see more people learn about it. Because the way that my mom found it was she was on the Girl Scouts Destinations trip website, which is kind of like a camp, but like across the country. And she was just like trying to find the cheapest program me and my sister could do that summer. So she was Googling, and I think she filtered by price, and she saw, like North Country, like rock and wilderness trip up in Ely, Minnesota with the Northern Lakes Canoe Base. Like, oh, my kids like canoeing, and just signed us up. And that's how we found it. But it really is just such a hidden gem. So I'm really hoping that from this trip, people learn about that program more. And yeah, I'm also just hoping that people realize that like canoeing just isn't for like your grandpa to go fishing or whatever. Like there's so many different types of canoeing. Like there's whitewater, like there's canoe expeditions, there's like day trips. Like there really is like, there are paddle sports for everyone out there. And we just want to show people that like it is actually fun. Like it's totally doable, and there's just so many opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah, so important. I think just outdoor programs in general, but especially ones that are a little more niche. They can, I don't know, it's like pick your flavor. There's tons of ones for everybody, but I don't, like you said, there's not tons for women and girls specifically. And yeah, I think depending on how they're funded, especially publicly funded ones, they get shut down left and right. Those are one of the first things to go, along with like the arts and music and like all of these things. I feel like everyone probably says this at whatever time in their life. We're at a strange time in our lives right now, but like, no, really, we are at a strange, awful time in lots of ways. So this work that you all are doing is more important than ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's something that we've really realized in the planning process here too, is like when we started this expedition, like really like started planning it back in July of 2024, we like didn't think too much ahead. Then I think like with everything that's been happening these past few months, like the threat to the boundary waters and everything, like I think we just realized that like this is the right time for us to paddle this, and like it just seems kind of meant to be in a way where I feel like we're in a really great position right now where we can really like use this trip to like create like a whole paddling community and just to really spread so much awareness and educate a lot of people.
Hell yes, you have my full support.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything either Emma or Helena you want to add?
I mean, I would just like, double up on what Olivia said about the importance of having like institutions and programs that can like boost underserved communities, getting them into the outdoors. And then also, I think that a lot of times when people talk about paddling and things like that, they think of, competition, and they think of it as a sport and intensity and pushing each other to the limits, which there are aspects of that. But I think one of the reasons why I'm really drawn to canoeing is because I see it more as like an art form and more as like a practice that we can share together. So it's something that I do to relax, and I think we all share a vision of that, of seeing the beauty in canoeing. And it's not always a testament of like how strong you can be and how hard you can push yourself, but it's kind of like a very physical motion where you can, be very mindful of everything in your body and be mindful of the world around you, because when you're going in a canoe, you're not traveling at this like lightning speed. You really get to sit there and, watch the surroundings slowly change around you. And I think that's like something that people should realize more, is that you can do these activities to just enjoy yourself in the outdoors.
I feel like when I'm paddling on sometimes a river, it depends, because it's depending on how fast you're going or like where you're at in a river. And if you're the front boat navigating, if you're in a group or whatever, like you really have to pay a lot more attention and read the river and hazards and things like that. But on flat water, it's such a meditation in motion. Like you can space out, you can think about things, you can look at your paddle strokes in the water, you can look for wildlife on shore, you can look at the different colors if you're paddling at a time that there's different colors. It's magic. You can like try to sit here and describe it all you want, but it's almost undescribable in a lot of ways, and that's what makes a place like the Boundary Waters so special. And if people haven't experienced it, then they need to go out and take a trip, because then that's how we're going to get to hook these people into supporting and donating money and getting not just the organizations, everybody, and with our right to vote, and getting the right people in administration to stop this nonsense and get legislation put through finally to really stop this thing and hopefully never have to battle it again, so that it's permanent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so physical. That's something that we like to encourage people to do as well. Like you said, like get out there and experience it for yourself. And when people like are able to go through programs like the Girl Scouts or Outward Bound or something, and learn about things firsthand and see that beauty for themselves, then that's what makes them care. When you can see it and experience it and realize why it's important to protect these areas.
Yeah. And I know even now too, like the Boundary Waters in that whole region is only becoming more and more accessible. Like I think the very first like wheelchair friendly program actually started maybe about like a year or two ago up on Birch Lake. So like and I know Wilderness Inquiry too is another program that does trips in the Boundary Waters for people of different abilities. So yeah, there's definitely these smaller programs that are starting to branch out a bit. So yeah, it really is just for everyone, and it really is an amazing place. My favorite memory from canoeing in the Boundary Waters actually is I was paddling on Ensign Lake, and I looked up ahead and I saw like what I thought was a log, and I'm like, wait, why is the log like going across the lake that fast? And then I realized it was a black bear swimming from the mainland to an island, and I watched him like get out of the water, shake off his like majestic coat. I saw like the water fly off of him, and then he just disappeared into the woods, and it was like the coolest moment ever.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's so important to get people outside and to appreciate like everything the world has to offer. I personally think it's especially important since so much of our like daily lives is online, and like coming home from looking at my computer all day to look at my computer to relax isn't great. I personally get migraines from it, but like that's not ideal. So I think it's just really important to bring more people into the outdoors and just let them know that it's okay to like make some mistakes. 'Cause if you're just starting out with like pulling up to a car camping thing, and either like you could sleep in your car if you wanted to, like just being somewhere that's outside, and then there's so many rungs to this ladder that you can climb. Like, I'm not encouraging people to start with an 85-day trip. That's a lot.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
But like, go for 2 nights at a campsite. Go to a national park. Spend a night there. Spend 3 nights there. Go backpacking. Go canoe camping. Spend a week. Like, just slowly work your way up, and then you can spend more and more time out in this beautiful, like, place we call home. So.
Yeah. I want to add too, like, definitely like getting people started on adventure is something we're here for, but also like encouraging them to like responsibly start an adventure too. Like a big part of like when you work for guided programs up there, what you're also told is like no matter what, like don't help people on portage trails unless like they're injured and need to call out, because like you don't want to carry their food pack for them and help them get even farther into the woods and they can like comfortably manage. So yeah, while like there are so many ways to make trips beginner friendly, and the Boundary Waters certainly is beginner friendly, like there's still, being a beginner still isn't an excuse for like not following LNT, like not storing your food right, leaving gear on the portage trail, like having people like help you get farther than you would normally be able to go yourself. But yeah, like there's options for everyone, and I think just being like really honest with yourself and like your group's ability when you're starting off is like so essential. Like approach the woods like from a humble perspective. Like don't come out there to like go fight Mother Nature for a weekend. Like it never works out. You're gonna end up cold, wet, hungry. Like you're gonna break your gear, break yourself.
You're gonna lose and lose hard.
You never win. Yeah.
How do you hope your journey will inspire the next generation of outdoor women? What would you say to a 12-year-old girl who's unsure whether she belongs on the trail?
If you want to be out there, you belong out there. Like, if you're looking at like this trip and you're going, oh my gosh, I would love to do that, you have like so many opportunities to do that. But finding those little like niche, like if your family isn't outdoorsy, you can still be an outdoors person. Like, you just gotta want it.
Yeah.
And I would say,
I think. Oh. I think we'd all say, like, spread your wings, girl. Go against the grain. And just because you're the first person that's doing it doesn't mean it's wrong or that you won't be able to achieve it. Something that I've dealt with in my life is just like feeling the need to always ask for permission, and look to others to determine the status quo. But I really would encourage people to start paving their own path, and you're not required to get acceptance from other people to do the things that you want to do.
absolutely. Yeah, and even going off of that too, I would say like you don't have to be like in middle school or high school to like be trying to get into the Boundary Waters. Like if you're like 50 years old and you've never been on a canoe trip before, like you should absolutely go. Like one of my favorite groups I ever ran into was at a Knife Lake Portage. It was these two best friends, and I believe they were like in their 60s or even beyond. And they've been doing Boundary Waters trips for I think like the past like 20 years or something. They go to Knife Lake every single summer, and that's just their thing. And like what's amazing about the Boundary Waters is you see people that are like 3 years old, and then you see people who have been like canoeing since it became a wilderness area. Like it truly is so amazing, and we just want everyone to just if they think it's pretty, if they think it's cool, like going out there. Like there are so many ways, and there's so many programs, there's so many guided trips you can do, and yeah, it's just really amazing.
Yes, great messaging all around. I didn't mean to disclude the older folks, I want more younger folks to get into it and then spread the word, and then they can experience it longer. But that's a great message too. I think it's tough on folks that are older. It's kind of it's a spectrum thing, right? Like at the beginning you're unsure and you're like young and you're questioning yourself, but like that also happens when you're older.
Yeah.
You're retired, you don't have sort of the same structure and routine and purpose because your working life is a lot of that when you're a human being. So you're right, it can happen at any age, especially want to encourage the young girls.
Absolutely. Like I will say, like I got started on my first canoe trip. Like I remember every lunch, like I would sit there with my sister. She was 12, I was 14 years old, and like we take off our wet boots and we check each other's feet for leeches, because like for some reason that was like the scariest thing we had to deal with on the trip, was like the idea of getting leeches on our feet, somehow under our socks on the sole of our feet or whatever. But like,
oh, funny.
Yeah, like I don't know, it just we all started like all of us here started somewhere, and like we're fortunate to have had these outdoor opportunities. But I don't know, just because you're like 16, 17 and you've never canoed before, even if you're like 55 and never canoed before, like that doesn't exclude you from anything.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yep. I grew up on a lake, but I didn't get into the Boundary Waters until I had friends that were doing it in high school, but I was like a super jock athlete, so I didn't have time to do a lot of the outdoor stuff. But I remember they went to like El Royale and they went to the Boundary Waters and all these things. And I'm like, that sounds so cool. Maybe someday. Well, I think I was 23, I think,
Yeah.
the first time I went in. So like to some standard that's late, or like, but like, who cares? There's no timeline there. So what's next after Hudson Bay? Anything? Do you see this as a one-time expedition or the beginning of like a bigger movement where y'all have plans for other things, or do you not want to spoil alert people?
I know Emma and I have this joke of, hey, we went south to north into Canada. What if we went like east to west or something? I will say at the start of the semester, I got really bored in class, and I put together this like really, really wild canoe route that goes through like the western half of Canada. And I don't want to share it because it's top secret. Even though I did send it to all of my canoeing friends.
I could tell by y'all's faces when I asked that. You're like, are we gonna respond to her or are we gonna not? Yeah. Emma, you don't have a good poker face. Yeah. I hope you never go to Vegas and play poker.
No, I really don't.
Yeah.
We have many plans. I think Olivia and I have been talking about that. Not quite seriously yet. Specifically, I think, for me, because I'm graduating this year, and I don't know where I'm going. So I'm like, I'm gonna make it through this trip, and then I'm gonna figure things out. But I definitely want to be able to, like, go out into the woods after this, like, and do expeditions and do all of the cool stuff. There's so much to see in the world, and I'm only one person.
Absolutely.
I would say, this isn't my last crazy adventure. It's just gotten me thinking of like all of the other things that I can be doing, and I am just glad that I have these three ladies, because I will just follow them wherever they go. Like, I just have three, new expedition partners for the rest of my life, and I have been considering a lot of things. I'm like, I do like multiple sports, so I think about like, can I do like a paddle and climb, or like some sort of like deep sea soloing, or like, I don't know, something crazy. I just want to continue with this lifestyle, and as long as I can when I have the ability to.
Absolutely. Do it. That's my advice. Do it.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a big balance of, obviously like focusing on the expedition at hand and not getting too ahead of yourself. But I mean, I know for myself, like, I would love to work as a NOLS instructor after I graduate college. I would love to do another canoe expedition or two. I definitely plan to hike the Pacific Crest Trail sometime in the next few years as well. So yeah, just like so many adventures, but I don't really want to wait to start them. I'd rather do them when it feels like natural, when I feel ready. And yeah, I think I'll feel ready soon enough after this trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Any final thoughts, messages, inspiring quotes? We didn't really talk about poop.
We
No,
did
we
it.
didn't.
That's okay. We don't have to. It'd be like the first. No, it's not the first. I don't always talk about poop,
Well, I can share a poop story.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to think. So yeah, during Outward Bound, during my trip, we went on our solo on, I believe it was about like day 43 of our 55-day trip. For like the whole 4 days leading up to this solo, which is the way that it was on our trip was it was 48 hours alone in the desert with your little solo tarp, 10 liters of water, 10 crackers, a handful of peanuts, and a handful of raisins, and that was all. We left books behind, no watches. We were just sitting out there reflecting. But yeah, for the whole few days leading up to this trip, there was like a mystery stomach bug that went around. Some were worse than others. One of my friends almost threw up in a slot canyon, which would not have been fun, but we all managed, but we got sent on this solo, and I had limited toilet paper. I didn't have a trowel, and things were happening. Thankfully, though, I brought my first aid book, and I was reading. I was like, well, I'm right at like the 10 shits a day mark. I'm not over it, so it's not that bad, right? And I was like, it's probably fine. But the best thing about the desert is if you find like a nice smooth desert rock, you can like dig yourself a cat hole, use that same rock as toilet paper, plop that rock in that hole, and yeah, I did that like at least 10 times that day, 5 times the next day. Then I was fine. But yeah, I would not recommend. That was also my very first time using wag bags as well. And the way Outward Bound had us do it was they had us use them 2 to 3 times, and then we would put them inside this PVC pipe called a poop tube, and then we would strap that to our backpacks and like hike with it. But the poop tube you shared with a buddy. So I shared one with my really good friend, and we figured, hey, if we're sharing the poop tubes, why not share the wag bags? Because who wants to open like a 3-day-old bag of shit when you could open like a half-day-old bag of shit that your friend already used? So that's what we did.
Oh my gosh.
One time we synced up, and I went right before her. Like, I left the toilet paper out under a little rock, and like I held the bag down with some rocks, and we were very courteous about it. And I will say it worked really well, but it's an experience to be like molding your shit into a certain size to gram into a tube that you're gonna like hike around with for a few days.
That is quite the poo story. We would always joke around about like buddy pooping, and then like in which position would you go back to back? Would you both find a tree and hang toward each other? Would you hold hands and then squat?
I hope for us.
Always the running joke.
Yeah, my hope for us is that when we get to the haze, we'll feel comfortable enough so we can all do one buddy poop together with the bear spray in the middle. So if a bear comes up to us, we all just like we have to coordinate it so we don't like roll into like hat holes.
Don't fall into your shit. At least it'll be your own shit.
I feel like you kind of win the poop stories here. I don't know how Emma and I are supposed to top that. The only story I can think of is one time I had just like 5-star poop in a field during sunset, watching wild horses graze. So that's, great moment.
That's amazing. See, that was always part of my plug to the kids when we were teaching them how to eat, sleep, and poop in the woods was like when we got to the poop part, obviously I did the joke, the bit, and then it was always one of the best criteria is find a beautiful spot with a beautiful view. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, okay, this isn't so bad. Mm-hmm. This whole pooping in a hole thing.
We teach a very similar poop lesson. Those are my go-tos. First, get comfortable with saying the word poop, and then teach them about the group poop, legendary. If any of them do it, they get extra props. And then I teach them about the 5-star poop grading system. So there you go.
The record I heard for the buddy poop, at least at the Girl Scout base, as of 2019, I heard the record was 6 girls, and this was in the Quetico, so they didn't have the latrine, they had the trowel, so they just passed the trowel around, and I want to know how they all synced up, and but apparently all of them went, they were all just back in the woods, like the guides were just chilling at the campsite, yelling back, like, you guys good back there, and yeah, it happened, and that's the record holder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, most of my poop stories, I had one time where one of the scouts on my trip, it was like day 5 or 6 of a 10-day, walked up to me and was like, I'm not gonna poop. And I haven't pooped. And I was like, well, you see, now you've made it my problem. So... Did you know that when you make brownies in the Boundary Waters and they're box mix, you don't need to add water? You just add oil and they cook great. They don't. But it is a very effective way to get things moving. But yeah, everyone had to use the shovel at about the same time. Which was a slight problem, but
that'll do it.
That'll
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a birch bark tea story where this person I knew from Northern Tier, he had someone who couldn't poop, so he boiled birch bark tea, except instead of boiling for 1 minute like you're supposed to, I think it boiled for 10 minutes, and it was like black, and I think this guy like immediately crapped himself and then kept crapping himself for the entire trip.
Ugh.
Yeah, so I don't think we're gonna make a birch bark laxative anytime soon.
No, don't do that.
He, on the way to the grumper, pooped himself. Like, yeah. But not ideal.
Yeah.
No. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, on that note, I feel like that's a high note to leave you all. And thank you again so much for your time. And it's a very inspiring way to finish. We're at the top right now. We have to.
Yes.
We got to call it. Throw in the towel. You know? Thank you all. You're all so lovely. You're all so inspirational. I'll be following along on your trip. I hope the listeners will start to give you a follow and follow along on your trip. Hoping to check back in with you all post trip too. We'll talk. That's months away.
Yeah.
But I'd love to check in after your trip again. To have a new round of questions and get you all in one place. It was super fun connecting with you all. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wonderful chatting with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all. Really hope you enjoyed that episode. And I wanted to let you know that I'm launching a Patreon to help keep Dirtbag Therapy alive and growing. Right now, there are only 2 levels of support offered, and the goal is to build some momentum. If we get this thing off the ground, I'll add more perks like exclusive content, live Q&As, and even some road trip postcards. This summer, I am hitting the road to bring you more adventure content, wild stories, and deep dives into Dirtbag dirtbags that I meet on the road and their lifestyle. But that takes time, gear, and gas money. If you want to be a part of this from the start, here's your chance. So if you join the crew, look in the show notes, and the link is below. And if you can't support financially, no worries at all. Rating the show, subscribing, and sharing it with a friend helps so much. So let's keep this adventure rolling. Really appreciate your support.